Released by Square Enix in 2010 on the Nintendo DS, series creator Tetsuya Nomura returns to create another side story in the best-selling series Kingdom Hearts, which chronologically takes place after the events of Kingdom Hearts 2. Recoded is unconventional in both its gameplay and story, as it plays the story out from the perspective of Mickey Mouse, but the gameplay is a motley mix of various game styles, ranging from traditional 3D play to 2D platforming, to on-rails shooting, to turn-based battles, to objective mini-missions like in 358 over 2 days. Either way, the story only gets larger, so let's cut it down to size with a recapitation. The game begins with Jiminy Cricket recounting his journals of the two major adventures thus far, though the forgotten third adventure in Castle Oblivion is evident with the wiping of the first journal. Suddenly, he notices a new entry in the first journal as a cryptic message he knows he never wrote himself appears. He hurries to bring this development to King Mickey, who agrees it's worth looking into. He says he knows of a way to investigate this and brings in Donald, Goofy, Chip, and Dale. Taking a page out of Ansem the Wise's book, Mickey figures that if they encode the journal, they can analyze the message by looking at the data of the memories within, similar to what Ansem did to Roxas. However, it turns out that the data in the journal is full of bugs and errors. Goofy asks if there's a debug program for the journal, and Mickey has an idea of how to make one. Now taking a page from Organization 13, Mickey figures they can create a replica of Sora within the journal, from data similar to how the organization did with Riku in Castle Oblivion. This data Sora will be their antivirus and debugging program to fix the journal as they work to uncover the meaning of the mystery message. Immediately, Data Sora sees a black-robed figure and moves to follow, but is interrupted by recreated Heartless first. From this point on, Data Sora moves from world to world in the same pattern as the real Sora did, cleaning the system sectors out of glitches and the data Heartless that keep creating them. He debugs Destiny Island's memories first, and Mickey notes the journal now begins to impart new cryptic messages and entries. Data Sora receives the same message by means of the same cloaked figure, but he disappears right as a keyhole and digital copy of the giant Heartless reappear. Defeating this, Jiminy and the others are surprised to see new memories for events that they weren't aware of, much less recorded, begin to display. One thing is for certain, and that is the more world sectors Data Sora cleans up, the more they delve into this mystery. As Data Sora now clears Traverse Town, a cluster of Heartless suddenly appears inside the same room, and Mickey is quick to dispose of them. Moving to secure the rest of the castle, they find themselves trapped within the room and unable to leave. For now, they can only rely on Data Sora to fix more of the journal. Data Sora encounters Wonderland next, and while fixing bugs, he runs into the cloaked figure again. The figure warns him that the memory and reality are now one, and leaves while Sora is urged to give chase. As Mickey and the crew monitor, they hear a knock on the door of their sealed room. To everyone's shock, Data Sora bursts in. Now they see themselves on the simulation monitor. The cloaked figure now appears before them and veils himself to be Riku, or at least a data replication of him. He begins to explain that the memories within the journal were taken apart and put back together, and in doing so, bugs appeared and hindered the restoration. The journal chose to store its memories inside a data Riku in order to preserve them. It was also this data Riku that chose to import Mickey and the crew into the datascape of the journal to help him. Suddenly, a hacker accesses the datascape and cuts off the link to the real world. Now the mission is to repair the link as well as solve the mystery of the journal corruption, and Sora leads a charge into the next world, Olympus Coliseum. Inside, he fixes more bugs while battling in a vintage turn-based style. Meanwhile, Journal Riku gains more access to his memories and explains it was his own deeper memories that he displayed earlier, and that's why none of them remember them. Suddenly, Data Sora runs into Pete from the real world, who was also imported into this world, but now declares the datascape has his own and runs off. Data Sora gives chase into the next world, Agrabah. Pete's tampering with the world creates a lamp that Jafar uses to amass power, and Sora brings the fight to the Cave of Wonders. Defeating Jafar and moving on to Pete, Maleficent now suddenly appears and ambushes Sora. She succeeds in destroying Sora's Keyblade and moves to drag him into darkness, but Mickey and the Journal Riku save him. It's explained that as Pete was spying on them in the real world, when the crew was imported into the datascape, so was he. However, he found himself inside the journal but not inside the sealed room, so he called Maleficent in and together they decided to take over this strange place. Afterwards, Maleficent hijacks the Journal Riku and they escape. Without Sora's Keyblade, they can't fix the bugs, but Mickey says he has a plan and moves out. Data Sora also can't sit still and chases after Pete into the next world, Hollow Bastion. Defenseless, he soon finds himself overwhelmed, but Donald and Goofy come in to rescue him and run wingman as they continue after Pete. However, Pete tricks the crew and traps Data Sora alone. As he moves to crush Donald and Goofy, a burst of power surges from Data Sora, and he materializes a new Keyblade to save his friends. Mickey now comes in and observes that Data Sora has now somehow risen above the system, thanks to the bonds he made with friends he made along with his journey so far. Now armed, Data Sora takes down Pete, but before he wins, Pete calls in Data Heartless Riku, forged from overloading Journal Riku with bugs. Data Sora and Data Riku duel, and though Sora wins, Data Riku is still riddled with corrupt bugs. As Mickey and crew arrive on scene, Sora figures he must enter Data Riku to debug him, despite the unknowns of jumping inside the buggy data manifestation of the journal inside the buggy data world of the journal. Inside, he finds Data Riku, who hands him one more system to debug to save the whole journal, one that is not only composed of his data but of Sora's. So now, Data Sora dives one layer deeper into a set of worlds from Journal Riku's memories within Journal Riku within the datascape. As Sora liberates that data, the hacker from earlier tries to cut off the link from the real world yet again. As Sora hurries to escape a collapsing world, he is stalled by Maleficent, who clashes with him in her dragon form and still ultimately loses. Escaping from within Data Riku, Sora comes back to Hollow Bastion, and Data Riku opens the way for Mickey and his friends to finally go back to the real world. Once done, Riku now reveals that the restoration of the journal will also mean that himself and Data Sora will be erased, though Sora fondly reminds them all that their memories will live on in Mickey and in the friends' hearts. As the world reboots, one last bug is detected, but it seems to not only be a massive bug, but the prime bug controlling all the other bugs so far. And it looks like it's moving to flat out delete the journal. On top of this, Jiminy suddenly remembers that Maleficent and Pete are still inside the journal, and it just wouldn't be right to let them get deleted. Data Sora charges out one last time to not only rescue the evil duo, but also stop the last bug as the world starts deleting around him. They all encounter the giant Heartless Sora fought before on the Destiny Islands, and as it hurls Pete and Maleficent into the darkness, Data notes that Sora wasn't the only one to evolve within the datascape. It turns out that the culprit behind hacking the journal and keeping it blank was the Heartless that Sora turned into a long time ago in the first Kingdom Hearts adventure. While that event was recorded, that Heartless was never technically defeated, and the memory of it was kept alive within the journal. That's why when Sora's memories were restored, the journal stayed blank. As Data Sora grew in strength in defeating Data Heartless, Sora's Heartless grew by absorbing the scattered data. Now it's trying to break out into the real world. Data Sora now fights the real Sora's Heartless through not only the giant Heartless form, but also an anti-Sora form, and finally its tiny original Heartless form. Finally closing up that loose end, Pete and Maleficent are rescued, and Mickey and Data Sora say their goodbyes. Though the journal is finally restored, the question of the writer of the original message is still a mystery, as it wasn't Sora's Heartless. As they look in, Journal Riku reveals news that another new world has been discovered, though this one seems to have been added after all the other data was restored. However, Data Sora was already restored, though Mickey moves in to still mobilize him again. Now, Sora is transported to the new world Castle Oblivion, where he is soon met by another cloaked figure who explains the nature of the world, which allows him to not only explore past memories, but also new possibilities from alternate choices he could have made. The loss of those he once met and now forgotten begin to cause him hurt, and at this time the cloaked figure appears to explain that this is the hurt that he must cut loose. Sora states that he would rather keep his bonds even if they burden him, and so the two clash. After the fight, it turns out the stranger was a data version of Roxas, the nobody within Sora, and upon defeat, Roxas merges with Data Sora and presents him one last location to reach. Mickey now catches up, and together they enter the final door. Beyond, they find Data Nominee, who explains that all this was set up to keep hold of the extra memories stored deep within Data's heart, of people with unique bonds connected to him that he may not even be aware of himself. It also turns out that it was her who not only left the message, but also let loose the darkness and bugs to encourage them all to dig deep and harden themselves to face the actual truth. Now ready, Data Sora unlocks deep memories of the depths of Sora's heart thanks to the work the real Nominee left behind for the right time. These memories include Roxas, Axel, Xion, and the events of 358 over 2 days, as well as the memories for Ventus, Aqua, and Terra, and the events of Birth by Sleep. Mickey wonders if the time of the real Sora to learn all this is now, and figures it must be for the sake of all those who must be saved. Their journey to connect old memories with the current ones now done, Mickey writes the letter summoning Sora and Riku that is open at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2. The game concludes with a conversation Mickey has with Yen Sid, as Yen Sid reveals that the destruction of the Heartless Ansem and Nobody Xehanort were actually part of a larger plot of the true Xehanort's resurrection, and Sora and Riku must now be called in to take the Mark of Mastery Keyblade exam. Kingdom Hearts Recoded is often regarded as the weakest link in the series, but does manage to tie up, if only a few, loose ends. It continues the series forward towards the next installment, Dream Drop Distance, and it has enjoyed the success of selling almost 1 million copies worldwide.